Hi everyone, so I just finished doing another video and something kind of came to mind as I was going through this video. It's really long and that's because I kind of got onto a different topic and realized that I really should do a whole video just on this topic. And that is the topic of proper exercise. A lot of people are probably sitting there going, well, exercise is exercise, right? And really, depending on the dog that you have, there are just off-the-wall differences that people don't keep in mind, especially when they are looking for a dog or if they're debating getting another dog and they found a dog that they're potentially interested in. I think the importance of exercise in itself is huge, but proper exercise makes a difference. And I'll explain what I mean by that. The fact that most dogs don't get out enough is kind of scary to me. A lot of behavioral problems boil down to lack of exercise or lack of proper exercise. If your dog sits inside the house all day and you find that your dog is barking at the door or barks at everything that moves or starts to destroy things or is developing nervous habits like chewing on their nails or biting at their skin or sucking on blankets or chewing things that they're not supposed to. I find that these things more often than not come down to not a training issue but a lack of exercise. Now there are obviously things that are triggered anxiety responses that have nothing to do with the lack of exercise. Prime example, we rescued a dog. Actually, she walked into the shop one day. Usually during the summer I leave the door open if it's nice out, and she kind of just walked in one day, and we have no idea where she came from. She wasn't wearing any identification. We plastered her picture everywhere. Nobody called us. Nobody knew who this dog belonged to. We actually got a few phone calls saying that these people had seen the dog at different parts of town, and said, okay, well maybe she belongs over here, and then we'd get a call a week later or a couple days later saying, no, we saw her on this side of town, I think she belongs to somebody over here. So anyway, Lady is her name. She is best described as looking like a Samoyed crossed with a golden retriever, maybe something honey-colored. Very, very laid-back dog. Loves to play with toys, but isn't destructive. She's not barky at all. Completely house-trained. She's, I'm assuming, spayed because she hasn't had a litter of puppies yet. She's been wandering, or she had been wandering for probably about 3 or 4 months before we ended up getting her. And she's great. Now, my brother ended up taking her to foster, and she was doing fine at his first home, but then moved in with one of his, he works, he lives on base, and he moved from one of his friends off base with a friend on base, and their dog started picking on Lady, and she started improperly eliminating. She was eliminating in the house. This was not a response founded by lack of exercise. It was because she was stressed out by the other dog, was eliminating in the house in an attempt to keep the other dog away from her. We removed her from the house. She's back with us, and she has been fabulous ever since. So there are, of course, instances where improper exercise is not the problem with the issue, like the issue with the fuel of the fire. It's just not coming out. But I would like to say that most of the people that talk to me and say that their dog is barking a lot or chewing things they're not supposed to really boils down to lack of exercise or lack of appropriate exercise. And what I mean by that is, if you have, like Lady could go out for a plain old walk and be happy. She's not a particularly high energy dog. The thing with my St. Bernard, we could go out with, Lady for a half an hour walk, maybe give them 5-10 minutes off the leash to run around and sniff and do their business and carry on our way, and they would be fine. My Basset Hound and my mom's Bichon, a totally other story. We need to go out and we need to run and sniff and play and chase things or we are not happy. And that is the difference. That is what I'm talking about. Um, there is definitely inappropriate kinds of exercise depending on the kind of dog that you have. High energy dogs, regardless of size, are going to need a different kind of exercise than dogs who are lower energy. So I actually recently explained this to a friend of mine who posted on a local web page that she was looking for either a German Shepherd or a Husky. And when my friend came into the store to buy puppy things, she frequents here, she also has cats. I explained to her that I was happy she was looking for a puppy that needed a home. She wasn't looking for a purebred. Um, but I tried to explain to her that what she was looking for were looks and not particular behaviors. Huskies and German Shepherds are not anything alike. Huskies and German Shepherds may belong to the same group of dogs, the working class, but actually I think German Shepherds, depending on where you are, herding, working, it kind of depends, they're not the same dog. And she was really just going for looks. And once I explained that to her, she was like, okay, I get what you're saying. So I said to her, you need to decide what you want in a dog. Because if you want a dog who's going to go out and play fetch with you, and who's going to become a master trick dog, um, or learn a whole bunch of really cool behaviors, a husky might not be your best idea. Now, I'm sure there are huskies out there who are fabulous trick dogs and love to play fetch, but chances are you're going to find that more in a German Shepherd. So I explained to her that if you're planning on having a dog that's going to sit around the house and be okay while you're at work, and you come home and take the dog out for a couple hours, and walk, maybe walk half an hour and be done with it, a husky might not be the best idea because they don't require the same kind of energy release as a German Shepherd does. I see so many people who tell me, oh, well, I bring my Pomeranian out for a 10-minute walk 3 times a day, but he's still a nutcase. Well, that's because a 10-minute walk is obvious, I shouldn't say obvious, it's not obvious to a lot of people, is not the appropriate kind of exercise for your dog. Same thing with, now, people who have notoriously high-energy fetchers, like your German Shepherd or your Border Collie or your Australian Shepherd, dogs who have a really high drive, most people kind of get it, I should say. They understand that taking the dog out for a simple walk is probably not going to cut it. But for some reason, people see certain dogs and think, oh, well, it just needs to go out for a walk, and then they end up with a dog who is just crazy because it's not getting the appropriate kind of exercise. So there are a few things that I recommend to people who have certain breeds of dogs, or are finding that their dog is not behaving properly and it's not a training issue. Things like improper, like I said, depending on the circumstance, there are exceptions to this rule. But if your dog is chewing on things it's not supposed to, or barking excessively, it could be that you're not providing that proper kind of exercise. It could be a training issue, but likely it's an exercise issue. So what I tell the people with puppies is one of the best things you can teach your puppy how to do is to fetch and retrieve, or retrieve and return. So to me, there's a difference between fetch, which is go get the dog thing and bring it back, and then the retrieve and return it to me. And some puppies who aren't natural born retrievers, this has to be kind of like a 2-step process. Teach the dog to get the item, teach the dog to bring it back. And even if your dog is not known for being a fetcher, like let's say you have a husky, or you have a Dalmatian, or you have a Bichon, like my mom does, they're not known for being particularly good retrievers. But this exercise is something that will greatly benefit you in the future if you find that just taking your dog out for a walk is not beneficial, is not reaping the benefits that it should. Because if your dog goes out for a 10-minute walk and comes home and is still really excited, it's obviously not drained the energy as much as it should. I've seen huskies walk for hours and come home and still look at you like, why are we here? Because that walking is not providing enough exercise. A 10-minute run is so different than a 1 hour walk. So if you can teach your dog how to fetch as a puppy, then you kind of, you can go to the park and throw a ball around for, 5 or 10 minutes, and it's active running. They have a chance to kind of go full tilt and get that energy out of them. Another thing that I recommend for dogs is to learn how to wear a backpack or pull something. Now, pulling something is a little bit harder if you live um, in a smaller community where there might be a lot of hills, or if you live in a really congested place like downtown city where you can't really have your dog pull anything. Guys, Tequila's not happy because Kit's on the desk. So a backpack might be something a little bit more reasonable. So if you teach your puppy how to carry a backpack when they're young, they kind of grow up learning that this is okay. Now, this isn't something that you want to put on a puppy who's still growing, because that's a little dangerous. Definitely leave this for an older dog who has finished growing and can handle this kind of thing. But what you're going to want to do is put the backpack on your dog and start with about 10% of its body weight. You might have to adjust this depending on how muscular your dog is. 10%, I wouldn't go very much lower than that because it's not really going to make a difference unless you have a particularly older dog or a dog who's overweight and needs to kind of take things a little slower. So, put some weight on the dog and make it carry it around, and you might find that 10-minute walk is now a little bit more beneficial for your dog. Another thing that might be good for you to do on a walk is to incorporate training into your walk. So, make sure your dog has to stay focused on what you're doing so that it's not just, walk around, sniff things, whatever. If you have a dog who does well with training and with trick learning and whatever, you can teach your dog to do certain things. My dog will switch sides if you ask her to heel or to switch. Heel is on the left, switch is on the right. If you ask them to sit and stay and walk 20 feet in front of you, they engage the dog mentally, and it might feel a little bit more satisfied when you come home. If you need to take your dog out for a run, you might want to consider teaching your dog how to run behind a bike or beside a bike. Or, I know a lot of people who live in the country will go out on their motorbikes or on their four-wheelers, and that's a fabulous idea. Now, a lot of people who live in the cities can't really bring a motorbike with you, but teaching your dog to run beside a bike is actually very easy to do. Most dogs will readily do it. My Basset Hound, when she sees a bike, she just goes wonky. She loves going for bike rides, and it's definitely a more beneficial form of exercise than simply walking. Now, you can get different, what do you call them, apparatuses, I guess, to fit to your bike so that your dog is not connected to the handle. Now, this is definitely not something you're going to want to do first. Don't tie your handle, your dog to the bike and go. You're going to want to teach your dog, if your dog is not polite when you walk, you don't want to start running with a bike. I definitely don't suggest that you put a harness on your dog if you're going to take it out for a bike ride, because then it could definitely become a pulling fest, which could be beneficial if your dog knows what it's doing, but for the first time, you probably don't want to put a harness on your dog. Halties are great. I love Halties. I love how they work. Might be a better suggestion if your dog doesn't understand how to go with a bike. Another thing that you want to keep in mind is that you don't wrap the leash around your handle. You want to keep it, put the leash between your hand and the handlebar, so that if your dog does pull, it'll actually come out and you don't go with the bike. That's usually what I do with my dogs in the spring when we start riding our bikes again, just until they learn they have to stay with me, and then after that we just go and they'll follow. So bike riding is definitely a good thing to do. Another thing that I've seen a lot of people teach their hunting dogs particularly is to carry something in their mouth. If they're carrying something, they can't, they feel, a lot of dogs will feel like they're doing something, like they've got a job to do. My friend she did end up bringing home a puppy, and we laughed. She got the best of both that she wanted. She got a husky retriever, or a husky German Shepherd cross. She's actually teaching her puppy to walk with something in her mouth. She's about 4 or 5 months old, already totally gets it, and she walks wonderfully because she has something to do. She's got something. They're occupied, they get somewhere, they throw it around, they say, okay, let's go, Sasha, they give her the toy, off they go. So that might be something you want to consider, but definitely keep in mind that not all forms of exercise are going to be good for all kinds of dogs. There are so many things you can do with your dogs as different forms of exercise that are hugely beneficial. I've seen people teach their dog how to run on a treadmill. I've seen people teach their dogs how to pull carts or their bikes. I've seen people take on paper delivery, just so that they have to bring the dog out with them. And they'll hook the dog up to a wagon, and around town they go to deliver their newspaper. I've seen people bring their get together with some friends and let your dogs play. If taking the dog out for a simple walk is not enough, then you need to find something that is more appropriate for your dog. So there's my rant about appropriate exercise. If you have any questions, put them below. I'm running out of ideas to do videos about, so if you have any questions that you're looking for some information on, or if there's something that you think that would be a good video for people to listen to, don't be shy to send me a message, and I hope you learned something.